YouTube, what the crap is going on? HeirofCarthage here. Why is it that every time I forget to say what the crap is going on, you all always think that I've stopped saying it? I guess you've become pretty fond of that, but that's okay. So there you go. I haven't forgotten it. I'm still going to say it. I don't see how it makes a difference in the video quality, but if it makes everybody happy, then I'm happy to do it. So in any case, I'm up against a viewer, apparently, or just someone who recognized me, because whenever I played this game, he said, "Good luck, have fun, Air," and I wished him the same. And I wanted to show this match, not only because I made some mistakes that I think you can learn from, but this player, I don't remember his exact rank, but I think this game was played in medium funds, which means that either this is a second avatar for him, or he's not overly experienced at the game yet. And I thought that he did a couple of things well on this, and I wanted to show you that. Some things good, some things bad, again, on both sides of us. I'm not saying who the winner is yet, you're just going to have to watch and see. So my opponent's brought 4 HeirofCarthage. He's got kind of a sword core here, which is 3 Katana Samurai. He's supporting them with 2 Naginata Samurai. None of his veterans have very much rank, and I am playing the World Weary on him, so whatever veterans he does have, which fortunately for him is not many, would be affected by World Weary. And World Weary takes away 1 morale and some melee attack. I'm also using the Fugu Cook, which is going to nerf his swords, so you can see his swords have very little attack. So some of you have said, whenever I played my videos where I played as a low star avatar against high star avatars, that the high star players really don't have that much of an advantage just because you have a money advantage at low rank. That's not true. The higher star people do have an advantage in the sense that they have a lot of very good retainers, and it's going to show in this one because I've pretty much neutralized his sword core before they ever touched me. It's because their attack is down to 10 or 11 each. So a high-ranking player, even though they lose money, they can still hurt you, because remember, I can play 5 retainers to his possibly 2, maybe 3, and then not only that, I've got way more retainers. So yes, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. I do believe, however, that lower rank players still can win the fight. Here I took the opportunity to try and get a downhill charge into his cavalry, and I felt very confident that my 2 highly veteran HeirofCarthage could take out all 4 of his if used properly, and I figured that this downhill charge would do the trick. Now unfortunately my Mon looks very similar to my opponent's Mon. Just keep in mind, mine's the one that got the little Tyra emblem on it, and mine's actually purple, not black. He charges in his remaining HeirofCarthage, and even though they're bunched up and going uphill, they start doing surprisingly well in this fight. But in any case, let's not focus the entire time on the cav. What's been going on in the meantime? I pulled up my bow cav to take a few shots into the rear. His guys are in the woods though, so I'm not expecting that much. I'm going to keep trying to use my bow cav for nuisance purposes. And I use them well and poorly at the same time in this match. I'll show you. Bow cav really should be getting a lot of kills if you bring them, or they should be causing the enemy to make movements that gain you an advantage in the battle. Here, I hadn't checked what kind of spears he had. These are Naginata Samurai. That's why I only just got 1 kill, even though I shot them in the back. And at which point his bows are going to open up on me and I have to flee. Bow cav are easy targets when they're standing still to enemy bows, so never stand still, even when they're moving. So I just lost a couple more men there. So I'm going to have to get out of there before his bows tear up my bow cav. I could have just run straight back and probably should have. My cavalry is finally about to rout, but you can see that I neutralized most of the enemy cavalry. He's got 2 units left for a grand total of approximately 63 men. And yeah, so he does have a maneuverability advantage at this point as far as melee cav. I do still have some maneuverability left in my bow cav and in my general. Apache is a leadership general, but I've given him quite a few melee statistics. He's not anywhere close to the best melee avatar out there, but he's got the best part of melee and the best part of leadership mixed together. You're going to see a lot of mixed avatars out there, as there's generally no sense in taking your avatar all down one tree. They become more useful when you mix them. I see lots of melee mixed with bow, or bow mixed with leader, bow mixed with melee, all these different stuff that you can do. I have leader mixed with melee. I noticed that my opponent didn't have a whole lot of spears down here, so I'm going to see if I can charge into these woods. I can't see his guys. I'm going to attempt to find an easy target. So I start firing a few shots at his general. I don't even expect to get a kill here. And sure enough, he pops these bow samurai out of hiding. And so these guys are going to become my target for a quick melee charge. There could be enemy bows in the vicinity, so I have to be careful with a charge like this. But bow cav are sometimes underestimated in melee, and even though I am in the woods, it is going to slightly nerf the effect that this has, as cavalry don't fight as well in the woods, but it gives me an opportunity to charge in and kill a fair few number of his bows, cause a little disruption. His cavalry has hidden up in these woods, and I assume that it's sneaking around behind me at this point, although I'm not giving him any indication that I'm aware of that, although I would think he guesses that I am. My army is a matchlock samurai. I've got 2 Naginata attendants up front. I'm using a foot samurai. Decided to mess around with these guys just for fun. I really doubt that they're a great unit, but their stats are actually really good. And the interesting thing about these guys too is their armor. They have a lot of armor, 6 armor. So they're actually relatively hard to kill in a bow fight. And their reload and accuracy statistics are good. So see, look, they took an entire flaming volley there and only lost 4 men. And I dare say if these bow samurai were out in the open, I'm pretty sure that my foot samurai would have them. They're getting a slight bonus from tree cover, but even still you can see I've already killed 11 of them, as opposed to them only having killed a few of my guys. So now I've got my bow cav over here. I just took a round of flaming arrows that fortunately mainly missed. I'm going to go ahead and go into swooping crane. This is not necessarily the best way to use bow cav, but it's the way I'm going to choose to use it here. I just want to keep his bows focused on my guys. I'm going to wheel up and try and take a volley with my matchlocks and help even out the bow fight even more. But my foot samurai have already killed 27 of his men, and that's with a little bit of cover, and I've only lost 11 men. So I'm actually really impressed with these guys. Are they worth it just by the numbers? I don't know. In fact, I kind of doubt it. But, you know, I'm going to tinker around with them, and I'll do some testing, and I'll let you know what I find out. You can see my bows take a lot slower casualty rate when they're in that position, so they can kind of just fix enemy bows into position. They won't cause a lot of damage in the swooping crane. I mean, they can, but it's not typical. I go ahead and stop my matchlocks to try and just get a couple of more shots before I move them back out of range, and I'm able to do that. So his Naginata samurai are well and truly beat up by the time they're going to make it to me. Let's take a look at the overall view. You can see my opponent's kind of bunching up in this sector. And I'm going to meet him up front here with some Nagi attendants just to slow his charge. And then I'm going to countercharge my opponent on all fronts here. You can see I'm going to quickly move Patchy to the flank. I know that his Yari Cab is up here, and Patchy's going to be a sitting duck if I put him in a stand and fight. So this is another reason why I mixed him with the melee general, to make him just a little more useful. So I drop Rally. I inspire my main Naginata unit so that it will do well. And here he does a really great hammer and anvil charge, but this is a long Yari Eshigaru, and you might be able to route it, but at the same time you're probably going to take some losses charging into it, even from behind. In the meantime, you can see that Patchy's over here absolutely murdering these bow samurai, and keeping them from affecting the battle, while I'm using these cheap sword attendant units who have a pretty good charge. Their attack is pretty moderate, but they have a good charge, and I'm using them to charge into the rear of the enemy troops. And again, he lays down a good hammer and anvil strike, but it's too little against units that just aren't going to break underneath that type of pressure. Foot Samurai actually have pretty good melee attack too for a bow unit, so I'm going to charge them into melee as well. And here you can see that Patchy's into the enemy avatar, and his avatar doesn't have near as much melee as mine, so I will easily win that fight. There's my swords into the back of his men. Going to help make sure and finish that off. My long Yari are finishing off those Naginata Samurai, and you can see his avatar is quickly falling. In an attempt to keep me from killing his avatar, he very cleverly threads this last Yari Cab unit through here and over into Patchy. It doesn't get the best charge though, so without that big charge, and with so few men, that Yari Cav won't be able to rout Patchy. However, that was definitely a good thought, because Patchy is extremely vulnerable to units like Yari Cav. Over here you can see these Foot Samurai laying waste to some of these Bow Samurai. And in a straight-up melee, a Foot Samurai unit would level a Bow Samurai, I believe. I haven't tested that, but they have a lot better stats. And also, they don't seem to be bad in a bow fight. So, good game to my opponent. I think the things that he demonstrated there that were good was his ability to use the hammer and anvil strike. He did that a couple of times. Also, he did persist and win the Cav fight, but he did win it at a pretty great cost. Who's to say, you know, how things may have turned out if he did it at a different time? It's hard to say. I think the thing he got a little bit worried about there was my matchlocks. There was really no need to rush into them. I only had one unit, and he should have just focused his bows on them until they backed up, and then he could have continued firing on my Foot Samurai, because my Foot Samurai would have had very little, if any, effect on his men, because he had that really good position there in the woods. So his men were extremely well protected from arrows. So in any case, there's just a little bit of good and bad. What did I do bad on my part? I really shouldn't have engaged this cavalry like I did, and then in the end, I had to readjust my entire strategy by moving all my troops to my left flank in order to stay away from his extra Yari cav, which I knew he had. Hope you enjoyed that. Let's move on to one more battle. Right, here's the second battle. This is a battle between myself and, I guess, Zupa here. I don't know how to say his name. I guess I'll just call him Zupa. I could be completely wrong. But in any case, he was a member of the, I believe it was the Anzac Samurai clan. And he had I think a gold 10-star ranking. I say ranking. Here's the way I'll say it. Some of you get mad at me when I use the stars as a rank. I'm using it as a general term, not necessarily a term to determine their skill, obviously. And I'm not talking about skill, the rank ladder. So what I'll say is that this player was 10-star gold experience. So this player has a lot of time online. I haven't gotten to play against many people of this experience level in a long time, and so I actually really welcome these matches. This is on the Isui Pass map, and you start at a low elevation and kind of rush up to a ridge line that sits in the center of the map. There are quite a few woods which allow you to have cover, and there's also quite a bit of terrain which breaks up the map. So right off the bat, let me tell you what my army is real quick. I've got 2 units of foot samurai, because again, just testing with these guys. Just because I'm using them, don't think that that means they're a great unit. I haven't gotten to test them. I have no idea about their qualities in multiplayer. I'm just having some fun. I've got 3 Yari Cav, my long Yari, 2 sword attendants. Again, I love these guys for flanking maneuvers, just because their little bit of attack and charge makes them an effective hit from the rear. And units tend to ignore them because they're so weak. I got my Nodachi Samurai here. And then 2 Nagi Samurai. I really like the Nagi Samurai Corps, and a lot of people highly underestimate these guys because of their relatively low attack. What these guys lack in attack, they more than make up for in armor and defense. Yes, they will get beat by an Odachi Samurai out on the open field, but in lots of situations they will hold their own against almost any unit on the game. Plus, they're quite good against missiles. I also have, I couldn't bring Patchy's Pain Train. I apologize. Someone asked me to bring them. They are still around, and I'll show them to you sometime. In this case, I brought my Katana Cav unit. Whoops. This is my Katana Frax, I guess I named them. Me trying to be clever, maybe not so much. They have pretty good stats there. You can see 24 attack, 20 charge. I haven't upgraded anything else on them. I'm using a Nagi attendant over here to run for the Bow Dojo. So why am I running for the Bow Dojo when I only have 2 foot samurai? Just to keep my opponent from getting it. Try and split him up. I'm going to put this into slow motion for a second because my opponent's army is absolutely redonkulous. So let me show it to you. He's got like 1 trillion units of Yari Ashigaru, and he's got like 5 bow units. I want to say a lot of bow samurai, if I saw it right. Most of them really don't have any upgrades. He's just brought a ton of bow samurai and a ton of Yari Ashigaru, so obviously longing back to the days of Rome Total War, and maybe in anticipation from the release of Rome 2 Total War. This player is using the good old noob box formation. And so let's take a look at his guys to see what kind of different things. So this one is a level 9 Yari Ashigaru. The stats on these guys really aren't scary. What's scary is that this guy has hold firm. Yeah, so he's planning on using the hold firm trick on me. Several of his units of Yari Ashigaru have different things, like this one has Inspire. This one has, and there was a couple with hold firm. Very well vetted units, and he's obviously intending to use them in a spear wall, thinking, I'm going to watch someone come to the front of the spear wall, I'm going to tease them in with all these bows, and their cavalry will be utterly useless because all my troops are spears. A lot of people think that spears make cavalry utterly useless. I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree, and I will show you why. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. You can see my opponent is in a double line formation here, and eventually he's going to form up into a box. I just sacrifice a Nagi unit here. His bow samurai will have no trouble killing these guys, even though my guys have a fair bit of armor and they're in loose formation. This is going to help me, number 1, expend some of their ammunition, which isn't going to hurt. Number 2, it challenges him for the sword dojo. I'm not just going to turn it over to him. This is why I bring these guys. And a lot of you ask me questions like, how do I fight against matchlock armies and stuff? Well, these guys are actually one of your answers to that question. Naginata attendants are very good as meat shields, they're very good in capturing dojos, and they're very cheap. They can also fend off cavalry extremely effectively. So these are a very good unit to bring for the cost. And a lot of people say, it's cheap bringing those. Well, I mean, they're an available unit just like every other unit on there. And as long as you're not just utterly abusing them, which I didn't bring them in ridiculous numbers here, I'm using them to good purpose. So look at all the ammunition that he expended on those guys. And there I went ahead and did actually capture the sword dojo. And over here, I've captured the bow dojo, so I actually own every dojo on the map. This forces my opponent to react to me, and here you can see I'm using my katana cap just to keep him busy. I just want him to expend troops, split up. I want to get this guy all over the map. He has a huge army, and the more that I can get him to micromanage it, the better I'm going to be. And so right here, again, just vying for these buildings. And he's going to come in here and try and capture the sword dojo. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to take these guys back in there, and I'm not going to let him take the sword dojo from me. So I'm going to move in my foot samurai. I have no idea how these guys would perform in a bow match, and plus, you know, I'm very much spread all over the map right now thinking about how to approach this, because I'm very scared of his Yari Ashigaru, and some of you might be like, yeah, that's crazy, they're just Yari Ashigaru. That's true, but they also have the hold firm thing, and hold firm can be dangerously effective. So I'm a little bit leery because this player is very experienced. He's brought this army for a reason, and I have to be very careful about attacking it because I'm not quite sure of its capability. It is all Yari Ashigaru, and I don't think much of it, but it is, you know, it does have hold firm, so I'm going to watch out. So I'm going to split up my cav into several different sectors. That way if he makes a mistake with his bows, I can quickly capitalize on it. So you can see me moving my cav out into some different areas, and I'm going to watch to get a hold of his bows. If I kill his bows, he doesn't really have much going because I didn't show you, I guess, the entirety of my army. I've got these two matchlock samurai, and I've got, these two matchlock samurai. These guys right here will just absolutely pummel his army if he decides to camp and he has no bows to stop me. So my opponent is in a situation of he has to kill my bows or else his strategy here is totally debunked. Now my opponent is going to be able to take away the archery dojo for me, and there's really not much I can do about it. I'm going to keep my katana cav away from him for the time being, and again just keep spreading my cav out all over so that my opponent has to watch from every direction. I'm trying to cause a mistake here. So he feels very comfortable in the sense that he's got, you know, spears everywhere and he can easily protect himself from cav, but I'm going to actually try and use that against him. I'm going to let him get complacent, hopefully, and let him make some mistakes, thinking I can't possibly be hurt by cavalry because I have an all-spear army. I'm going to try and use that to my advantage, because my opponent doesn't realize that even though he's got an all-spear army, my cavalry can hurt him very badly, and he probably ought not to underestimate that capability. So you can see the battle unfolding. I'll try and keep it from a distance here. At this point, I only own the sword dojo and the shrine, and my opponent is taking away the archery dojo. And you can see that it is his now. So he now has the archery dojo. Now what does that mean for me? That's very, very bad, because that means that my opponent can, number one, have more effective archers, and number two, he can give them unlimited ammo. So I have the sword dojo, I have the shrine, which means my guys have ridiculous attack and melee and morale. My Nagi samurai are almost invulnerable to his arrows, so you know what? I'm just going to charge. But I'm not going to spread out my men all over the front of his spear wall. You all may recall that I did a Rome Total War video where a guy came up in the corner and was corner camping with a bunch of Spartans, and what I did was I moved in on one unit. And what that does is that forces your opponent to either reinforce that unit, which means he breaks formation and becomes vulnerable, or he just gets eaten up from one side to the next if he doesn't move. So this is going to really put the pressure on my opponent. And again, look, he spear walls up right here, and here's the problem with spear wall. It's just like leaving a phalanx there. I can just outmaneuver it. This is kind of like the similar idea, you know, of maniple versus phalanx. Again, he's causing minimal damage to my Nagi samurai, and look, I just start to outmaneuver his little spear wall here. And I'm going to start going for a Yari Ashigaru that has much less statistics. I keep my Yari Cav right behind him so he doesn't want to move these guys, and he can't reinforce in all areas, and then I'm wheeling up my matchlocks to start blasting him from the front. Now I'm going to pull up my Cav, my Katana Frax over here. I've got them and another Yari Cav in that vicinity. So what happens here is a perfect example of what I did in that same Rome Total War. I'm going to attack him on the corners of his noob box so that his guys are less effective, and they also get the outflanked thing, and then they have a lot of guys standing here in the center doing nothing. And my opponent goes ahead and drops hold firm, thinking that that's going to really help him, and I'm just going to start really pouring on the heat in this one sector. I bring up Patchy right here. I'm going to rally, inspire, and go into stand and fight, and I'm going to just really pour the heat right here on this one flank. And here I'm going to do something that's going to catch my opponent off guard. Again, I've just completely focused down here on this flank, and if he moves, my matchlocks are going to blast him, or my cav is going to charge him in the rear. So he's stuck with this box formation. So what he thought was a strength, I've actually managed to turn into a major weakness at this point. And then look, I dismount my cavalry. So here's the Yari cavalry now that do not suffer a penalty versus spears. They have high attack because I have the shrine. And over here I'm going to dismount my katana cav too. So my opponent thinks that my cav units are screwed, but now he's screwed because my bows, my matchlocks are firing, my cavs dismounted, his spears no longer have any bonus. Watch these katana cavalry dismounted. They have 20 attack. It does take away some of their attack whenever you dismount them, unfortunately, but 20 attack up against these Yari Ashigaru is going to be just devastating. So my guys are going to absolutely shred his Yari Ashigaru right here, and my matchlocks are absolutely wreaking havoc. Now again, I could attack his line up here, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to really keep pouring on the pressure on this sector, and I'm going to completely collapse this flank for my opponent. His hold firm is gone now, which means that his army is going to go into a mass waver down here. Plus his general is in stand and fight right here as well. And so his general's stuck, and if he takes him out of stand and fight, his guys are going to lose that bonus. And check it out, I've already mopped up his spears that were on the flank, and now my katana cavalry is going to be able to come around. And look, he's all spear walled, which again, this seems very defensive and very effective. All I got to do is just walk around it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk right around it, and here goes my katana cav, albeit dismounted. They're still going to be brutally effective against these bow samurai. So there you go. My katana cav come in and just start shredding these guys mercilessly. And you can see from the above view that my opponent's army is in a mass rout, and I'm just going to wrap him up. And now the routing is becoming contagious, and whatever troops he had left, we're going to quickly rout. He quits the game or admits defeat. I do not know which one because it looks the same one way or the other, so I'm not trying to accuse. So what was wrong about my opponent's army there? It was very gimmicky. It could have been extremely effective if someone was foolish enough to play to its strengths. The strength of that army is to have you attack it across all fronts. That way you can maximize the defensive potential of all those Yari Ashigaru units. I'm going to take you to the results screen so that I can show you the results from this battle. So do not attack them on all fronts when they spear wall up like that. When a Yari Ashigaru is not in spear wall, it's extremely weak, unless it's a long Yari, then they're still pretty tough. But a Yari that's not in spear wall is worthless, and they cannot move quickly in the spear wall. So if you walk right up to them like you're going to attack them, kind of like I did, but then quickly move around the flank, they won't be able to counter you very quickly, and if they do, then they're just going to open another flank. So they're very defensive, and they can be very powerful, and especially when they have hold firm and all those upgrades, they can be very, very potent if you play to their strength. Don't play to their strength. That's all there is to it. He did not bring any cavalry, thinking that his spears could cover him, and that meant that my matchlocks were completely unopposed. So they could just sit there up front and fire and fire and fire, and it forces him to charge, and he's going to have to break his formation once again. So, interesting game there. I can't say that I've ever played against a Yari Ashigaru spam, and after you all watch this, I would hope that none of you use a Yari Ashigaru spam, because I just don't see how it's effective. Maybe it can work in certain scenarios, but I just don't see it being effective. Look at my, and this was in a huge settings too. You'll notice that my units were in the huge settings. I've had a couple of games recently I got to play in the huge settings, and I guess that means that maybe my opponent also has a computer that can handle those settings, and so it'll actually use them. That's pretty neat. So that's why it says my guys had 160 instead of 120. Check it out, 265 kills. This was one of the ones that went in on that flank. And then look at my Yari Cav. This was a dismounted Yari Cav that got those kills. 231 kills. Just to show you how ineffective Yari Ashigaru are in melee combat if they're not in the right position, which is how my guys got those kills. And then if you look right here, my Katana Frax, only 2 men lost, over 165 kills. So once again, this is how ineffective Yari Ashigaru are in melee against anything besides cavalry, unless it's a long Yari Ashigaru and you get them into spear wall, or a long Yari Ashigaru period is pretty good. I just, even with hold firm, I don't really see Yari Ashigaru being that good. And maybe my opponent just did this for fun, too, which is a complete possibility. Maybe he didn't really think it was good, he's just having fun. If that's the case, well, it was an interesting deal to play against, and I found it pretty entertaining. But if you look at the statistics of his troops here, it's pretty telling. The unit that got the most kills was his foot samurai, and that's not a good sign, because from there on down, it shows all of his Yari Ashigaru, bow samurai, everything just getting absolutely wailed on. Look at this unit right here, 178 losses to only 10 kills. And then if you even look up here, one of these Yari Ashigaru that we knew was veteran. This is one of his 9-star ones. 58 kills to 157 losses. Here's another one, 52 kills to 79 losses. These units are not overly effective, especially when you start pouring in all that that mass numbers there will start to make them waver, as they are a low morale unit and they are not immune to morale shock. So that is the dangers of your Yasuo. I could go on and on about that kind of thing, and this is actually really fun. Hope you all enjoyed those battles. I'll try and bring you some more. Some people have asked me for some anti-matchlock advice. Let me give you some quick advice on this screen real quick, and then as soon as I get a good battle to demonstrate it, I'll demonstrate it. Actually, you know what? This is a discussion for a whole nother episode, so I'll bring it up very soon. I'll ask Zerept or the Prussian Prince to help me with this, because they use the matchlocks and the modular armies, and the modular armies are very popular right now. So if you want to see some use of those, I definitely suggest going to look at Zerept's channel, as he talks about the modular armies in several videos and does a very excellent job of demonstrating how they're used. And the best way to counter an army is to know how it's used. So I would suggest you go watch his videos as a starter. Zerept, Z-A-R-I-P-T. He's on YouTube, does some excellent casting. The Prussian Prince also uses those types of armies. You can find him on YouTube. And then Gamer Dudester's also got a lot of videos up. Point Man's got a lot of videos up. I'm not the only one putting these videos up. And there's a lot of casters out there that I haven't mentioned. I think Majutsu, I played a battle with him. I think he put some videos up. There's a ton of people out there putting videos up. So if you're curious about these things and I'm not showing it, there probably is someone who is. Now, I will try to show it to you. I'm just saying that there's a lot of excellent videos out there that you can learn from as well if you're watching these to learn from the game. And again, yes, there's lots of good commentators, but I'm going to mention Zerept there just because he does a really great job of breaking down the mechanics of the game. Like, I mean, in my opinion, it's some of the best that I've seen as far as breaking down the mechanics of the game. So in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this. I will be back soon with more videos. Sorry that I didn't get any videos up the last 2 days of last week. I did get you 6, I think, in the previous 4 or 5 days, so that was pretty darn good. I do have another week of videos that I will bring to you. I do not know the exact schedule yet, though, so I'm not going to promise anything. But look for more Atomo campaign this week. I do want to get an Air Talks Total War out this week, and I'm trying to do one with the matchlocks. That's the reason why it got delayed, is I just don't have the footage I need. And tell me what else you want to see this week. You all, I'm sure, are wondering about the Take a Stab at Patchy thing. Don't worry, there'll be an announcement about that later this week. I will put up a video. In the announcement, I will also put out a message on Twitter, so keep an eye out for that. And yes, you all get to take a stab at Patchy on every Total War game of your choosing. So HeirofCarthage signing off for now. I will see you